welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Sherry Ricard. I'm an author, speaker, business leader, and adversity recovery expert, bringing you inspiring guests, business, and lifestyle tips to help you create a beautiful life, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's dive in.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on sherryricard.com.
Welcome back to Real Girl Talk. Thank you for joining me today. I have an amazing guest with me, and I know that you've probably heard her name, Gretchen Carlson. She is an American journalist, author, and former television commentator. She was named one of Times Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2017. She is the co-founder of Lift Our Voices organization and was Miss America 1989. And you guys know that's close to my heart as a pageant girl. Welcome to the show, Gretchen.
Oh, thanks for having me so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, to say that I'm honored and thrilled to have you here is an understatement. I told you that before we started. So, Gretchen, you basically became the news instead of us giving us the news and making headlines in 2016 when you filed a lawsuit over sexual harassment. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And there's so much that I want to talk to you about, but I know we have a time constraint. And so I really want to kind of dive into your story. But guys, just so you know, there are reasons why Gretchen cannot share a lot of specifics about her story, and we're going to cover that as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story to catch you up, and then I'm going to let Gretchen kind of take the mic from here and fill in some of the blanks for us. And then we really want to talk about her organization and how that was formed from some of the tragedies that she went through that she is basically triumphing from. So in 2014, Gretchen started taping her boss due to sexual harassment. Her boss just happened to be the most powerful man in conservative media, Roger Ailes, and chairman and CEO of Fox News, Fox television stations, and 20th Television. So to say he was a powerful man in conservative media is probably an understatement as well. But she started recording him and caught him saying things like, I think you and I should have a sexual relationship a long time ago. And then you would be good and better. And then I would be good and better. After more than a year of taping her boss in July of 2016, Gretchen came forward and sued Roger, not Fox. And hopefully she can explain that. Her lawsuit fundamentally changed the power of relationships that had governed the network since its inception 20 plus years before. Numerous suits have followed, including one that alleged that behind the scenes, Fox News operates like a sex-fueled Playboy Mansion-like cult. It has been described as being indecent in some of the exposures that has come forth. In 2016, Gretchen actually won her suit, and Fox agreed to settle, giving her a $20 million win of a lawsuit. But along with winning, she was also silenced. I will tell you that you can watch the story/movie Bombshell unfold on Netflix. I watched it, my whole family watched it, and it was really insightful. So I highly recommend it. Gretchen cannot tell you or I her story. You can basically you can see the gist of it on Netflix. Why she can't do it is because of her non-disclosure agreement, also known as NDA for those of you that have not heard that term. Meanwhile, former Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Julie, is it Radzinsky?
Radzinsky.
also sued Roger and Fox and Bill Shine, alleging that Roger conditioned an on-air host job offer on her having sex with him. So in December of 2017, Fox settled with her too for an undisclosed sum. She signed an NDA as well, meaning that she can't tell her story either. But oddly enough, she can tell me Gretchen's story, which we may have to get Julie on the show because Julie's NDA didn't start until a year after Gretchen settled. So Julie was actually quoted in the Daily Beast as saying, "I wasn't surprised by the allegations, but I was surprised that she came forward." What did that mean? Was that meaning that it was a suicide mission on your career, Gretchen?
I think, yeah, I think at the time, because Julie was still there, and I think, you have to try and go back in time. Hindsight's always 2020. But when I filed my suit 3.5 years ago, people were not talking about sexual harassment in the workplace, for sure.
Right.
And this was 15 months before the Me Too movement. This was 15 months before the Harvey Weinstein allegations. So, my case was truly a bombshell, no pun intended. And I think most people's general reaction, unfortunately, because we've been socialized so much to look at harassment this way, was like, holy crap, she's never going to win this thing. She's going up against the most powerful man in media, maybe one of the most powerful men in the world. How stupid is she? Now, people who knew me really, really well knew that I'd pretty much never do anything unless I investigate it to the nth degree. But, that's pretty much where I have to end telling you the story that you laid out, because I can't even tell you, because of my NDA, whether or not what you just said is actually even accurate.
I completely understand.
I can't say anything about that, but you bring out the irony that Julie, my colleague now in my new mission, liftourvoices.org, that she can tell you about my story and I can tell you about hers, but we can't tell each other about one another's stories, which is why we are working so hard to stop silencing women and men for future generations.
Right.
Listen, my story has been told now in the movie Bombshell, of which I could not participate at all. I can't even tell you if that movie is accurate or not. There was also a miniseries called The Loudest Voice that came out last summer on Showtime about my story, which was 7 parts. So it was, it was much more in depth. And again, I can't tell you if it's accurate or not. But those projects, it's probably too late for me to go back and change that and redo a whole nother movie if I can get out of my NDA and say what really, really happened. But I don't want that to happen to future women. And it's so much more about people who you haven't heard from before, because NDAs are so pervasive. It's not just about well-known journalists. It's about your police officer in your community. It's about your teacher in your community, your minister, it's everywhere. And this silencing of women has got to stop.
I know. And I want to talk about how you and Julie came together and you really joined forces and formed the organization, because you have been so silenced in being able to tell your whole story, even though you can tell each other's story, which is just so interesting and crazy in itself, I think. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, I'll just go talk to Julie about Gretchen. I'll talk to Gretchen. It's almost like we teach our daughters not to talk about each other in society, but because of the NDA, this is the only way that we can find out what has happened to you guys. And I think everybody gets the gist. I mean, we read the news articles, and I know there's probably a little loopholes. Are there any little dead spaces in the NDA that you can fill us in on?
No.
None. Nothing.
I mean, listen, here's what I can say. When I filed my suit in July 2016, first of all, as I said, there weren't a lot of big public cases out there. And there's a reason for that, which is a whole nother area that I'm fighting, which is called arbitration clauses, which that's the way that companies have been able to keep harassment secret, is that they make you sign these arbitration clauses, which means if you bring a case forward, you can't go to an open court system. You go to this secret chamber called arbitration. That's why we didn't really hear about harassment cases over the last couple decades. We thought we had solved this whole thing because companies had figured out their own loophole of making new employees sign on the dotted line on the very first day of employment. And if you happen to get into a dispute, you're going to go to arbitration and not to a court. So that's the first big hurdle I've been trying to change on Capitol Hill and trying to get legislation passed. The NDAs are the second part of it, that once you actually file a suit and you get into a discussion about potentially having some sort of a settlement, then companies make sure you sign these NDAs so you can never tell anyone what really happened. Again, it's a way of kind of covering up, because a lot of times these settlements are not public. And so women, don't work again, which is the end result, which is horrible. The perpetrators get to stay on the job because people don't know about it because it's been a secret signing of a settlement. And so they get to continue doing the bad behavior. Nothing changes. And meantime, women, there might be thousands and thousands and thousands of lost women. I mean, I know there are in our society who have lost their profession simply for doing nothing wrong. So back to my settlement, when I settled, I got a public apology, which was huge for the times, right?
Right.
And I also got the ability to talk about this issue, not in detail about my own case, but to forward the issue and try to make a difference, which I have taken full advantage of.
Right.
What if I would have known that my case would have helped to ignite a cultural revolution? I would have fought so much harder to not sign that NDA.
Right.
But at the time, nobody said to me, hey, this might start the Me Too movement. And so you probably shouldn't sign this NDA because you'll probably want to be able to talk about your story. I mean,
exactly.
I had no way of knowing that. I would have fought so hard if I would have known that just 3.5 years later, we'd be in this next phase where now women are saying, well, screw that. We're not going to sign the NDAs either, right?
Right.
So what we're trying to do now with Lift Our Voices is just that. It's like the next phase of the Me Too movement. Now that we're talking openly about this issue, the next way to try and fix it is to get rid of the vehicles that have helped to keep us down and helped to keep us silent.
One thing that I do want to stress here is I know that we have a lot of different political view listeners, and just to set the record straight, we are not talking the difference between Democratic Party and Republican Party. This is not about politics. This has nothing to do with politics, because I personally do not talk about politics on my show because I don't want to offend anyone that is on the left or the right. And I personally don't want to go to battle and defend what I believe in. I don't feel like that I have to, and I just don't want to. This is about all women across the board. This is about all women. This can affect any woman at any time in any career. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter your political views. We are speaking. Gretchen wants to be a voice for you, no matter what side of the fence that you're on politically. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter. You as a woman need to understand what you're signing when you sign an NDA. So you and Julie, when you came together, how did that happen? How did you guys join forces?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right about this being apolitical. And I always say, when somebody wants to harass you, they don't ask you what party you're in, because they don't care. It's all about power. So yes, I'm fighting for both sides and independents and everyone else in between. And that's actually, it's a really good reason why we should come together as a country to solve this, because it really does affect everyone. So Julie and I were colleagues. She would come on my show every week and give analysis. And then, of course, you read her quote about when I was fired, nobody knew I had been fired. And then I filed my lawsuit and she was like, whoa, I wonder what's going to happen with this. Right. Well, then, come to find out, she was facing her own harassment there, and quid pro quo, meaning that, allegedly if she did not sleep with the boss, she wasn't going to get the job. And so then she filed a lawsuit using my same lawyers. And then, we were always in touch, but fast forward to last fall, when NBC made the announcement, again, as part of this movement continuing, that they were going to potentially let women there out of any NDAs that they had signed in settlement cases. And another colleague of ours at Fox, Diana Falzone, and Julie and I all started texting each other and said, if NBC is going to do that purportedly, we're going to demand that Fox News let us out of our NDAs as well.
Yeah.
And so we did. We got together. We got our lawyers' help, and we wrote, a letter to them. And I will just tell you, we still have never heard back from them on that. But we then did some press around it, and it got a lot of attention. And then it just sort of organically grew into, we really should be doing this fight for other women not just us. And so that's when we decided to create Lift Our Voices. It was just a whole organic experience. We launched that in December of 2019. And, I'm really proud of the work that we have done in a really short period of time. We put out a presidential petition to all of the candidates running for president. And as you remember, there were a lot on the Democrat side.
Mm-hmm.
And we got every single one to support our mission, except for just a couple of them. But Joe Biden actually was the first one to support us. We do not have Trump. We did not get Bernie Sanders. We did not get Mike Bloomberg, and we did not get Amy Klobuchar. But our movement was successful in getting a question on the debate stage a couple of months ago where, they asked about NDAs. And that was huge. Because,
it was huge. All right.
Yeah, it was huge because, I guess some would argue that it ended the candidacy of Mike Bloomberg. But
I was just about to say that, Gretchen.
Yeah, but it was, according to Time's Up, I did a panel with them shortly thereafter, and they told me that was the first time that any question about NDAs had been on the stage in 22 years. Wow. So it was about time. We really feel like our work has made a huge difference in a short period of time. And if we can work to change laws and not have companies be able to force women and men to sign these kinds of agreements, we will change the landscape of the American workforce. And that is huge. So I'm really passionate about it and really excited about it. And I hope once we get through this pandemic that we'll be able to return to having, more discussions about it.
This is high profile, and it still is, but it really hit the world high profile. And you ladies have set up an organization that it wasn't just needed. It didn't even exist. Like you said, it didn't even exist. And so you're bringing it to the forefront now. And where do you go now that you formed this organization, Lift Your Voices? My guess is that you're getting a lot of women contacting you. So what kind of stories are you hearing from the women that have joined forces in Lift Our Voice organization that could maybe potentially be like some of the listeners that we're listening to that haven't come forward?
Tons. Because, as I've said, this whole mission is not just about well-known journalists or famous Hollywood actresses. This is pervasive across every profession in the United States of America and frankly, the world. So we have heard from police officers and teachers and lawyers and doctors and members of our military. We heard from an oil rig operator. We heard from an airline mechanic, all women who have, been harassed or have some sort of other toxic workplace environment and have been forced to sign on the dotted line to never tell anyone what happened. And, first of all, psychologically, that's really difficult for people to be silenced. And as I've stated before, it's very suffocating because for you to not be able to go on the mountaintops and scream out loud what happened to you, it's hard to heal. So that's the first thing. But then also women who are forced into silence, the scary part is they don't ever work again. They go into this silence. And then the thing is, you try and go get another job. Now you can't get a reference from your former employer because you had this so-called dispute, even though you did nothing wrong. So you can't really say why you left your job, right? You can't get a reference to go get the next job. So I would say of the thousands of women who've reached out to us, about 99% of them don't ever work in their chosen profession again. And if we're okay with that as a society, I know I'm not. So that's why I'm working so hard on this. But people don't understand that most of these women who come forward, it is career suicide, to go back to what you were talking about. And that's why we're working so hard to change it. You ask about stories of your listeners. Yes. We've heard from hotel workers who had to sign an NDA because one of them told us that she was fired because she was pregnant, which is illegal. Because they were going to pay her for 2 weeks' salary if she signed an NDA, she did. Because she needed the 2 weeks' money. And now she can't tell anyone what happened to her, even though it was completely illegal. So there's story after story like that where women get forced into a corner to sign these kinds of documents because they need the money. And, that's why this is much bigger than just Julie and Gretchen. This is, this is about helping the millions of people out there that have had no recourse ever, and nobody frankly has ever cared about their story.
I read something on your website which really surprised me. On Lift Our Voices organization website, said nearly half of employed American women have reported that they've experienced some type of harassment, abuse, discrimination, or retaliation at work.
Mm-hmm.
That's shocking, because there's a lot of women. Nearly 50% of the women, you haven't heard from even a small portion of those women if it's 50% of the women.
Oh, I know.
And it is.
Yeah.
Know it has to be more than that.
Oh, please. I'm hearing from, I cannot get back to all the women who reach out to me in a substantial way, because there are so many of them. I have counseled so many women over the last 3.5 years. I mean, I wrote a whole book about it, Be Fierce, which was to honor these women, but also to serve as a guidebook for women who are going through harassment. But there are so many unfortunate stories that I can't get to all of the people. Which goes to show you, and you know what the sexual assault numbers are on college campuses. They say 1 in 5 women will be assaulted. Well, those are the cases that you know about. Those are the cases where they actually went forward and put in a complaint or went to the police. I can tell you about harassment and assault that the majority of women don't come forward and say anything. And why don't they? It's because the way they're treated. Look at what happened to me when I came forward. I knew this was going to happen. My lawyers told me it was going to happen, that I was going to be maligned and people were going to dig deep into my life and try to come up with every single thing they possibly could to bring me down.
Of course.
And now, look, we've come a long way in a short period of time where women are actually being believed now. That is a huge, huge accomplishment.
Right.
So, while there's so much more work to do, I do think that we need to give credit where it's due, in the sense that we really have made great strides in a short period of time for better understanding of this issue.
I completely agree with you. And I'm just 1,000 kudos, and I'm cheering up and down without screaming here with everything that you're doing, because I know someone personally that was sexually harassed in corporate America, and she is not able to do anything about it. What she did do was quit her job. But what happened was, when she went to try to find another job in the same type of industry, and of course, what are the first things they do? Why did you leave? Well, she has to make something up. Or if they call her past employer and it says she's not eligible for rehire. Why are you not eligible for rehire? Well, she can't say, well, she's not eligible for rehire, because why she quit is covered under an NDA. And so it's very frustrating for her, because it basically was a suicide to the career that she has built over the last 16 years.
Yeah.
And she said, I would have been better off just walking away and making up a story about a family issue. It's why I had to leave work, so I could actually continue to get work. But instead, it shines like a red flag on her resume that she walked away, and she can't really tell why she walked away without lying.
Right.
In order to get another job.
I know. But that also goes to, the just discrimination that women still face, because I bet if a man walked away from a job without a total explanation, that he would be able to still find work faster than the woman. There's like this automatic assessment on women in those situations that they must have done something wrong, right?
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this. Speaking on men and women, do you ever have stories where maybe it's not so much, it's not a sexual harassment situation, but maybe that it is a female superior or director that's over another female, and she's very supportive of the men because she's wants to keep her spot and climb the ladder in this corporate organization, but the women harass the other women because women can be petty.
It's a problem, because and you kind of laid it out there, so few women get to the top echelons of corporate America, or any business for that matter. Right. That once they do, they have to straddle the fence between being in the boys' club and not being in it, right? And so oftentimes that means, unfortunately, that some of those women don't support women underneath them because they feel that they're either a threat to their one position of power,
Right.
or, they don't want to be able to lose their ties to the boys club. So, listen, there's a very easy solution to that. It's to hire more women in top positions. I mean, it solves so many things when you put women in higher
Right.
positions and pay them fairly, by the way. First of all, what do you have less of? Harassment. Surprise, surprise. Because
Right.
when you have more women in these top positions, you're not going to have the boys club as much as you do before. And if you have more female CEOs, that really changes the dynamic of the workplace. And, listen, this is not male bashing on my part at all, because I'm a huge proponent. One of the biggest parts of my message is that we need men to help us.
Exactly.
We need them to be educated on this. We need men who are running companies to stand up and say that they're going to support women who come forward. We need them to change the dynamic and environment of their workplace structure so that it is safe for women to do that. And, I say to leaders all the time, you got to say the buck stops with you.
Right.
And you've got to say that from the top so that it filters all the way down to all your employees. It is a tangled web to fix this problem. There are so many different ways to attack it, but leaders are a huge part of that. And they can really help women a lot by promoting more of us, giving us more top positions, and paying us fairly.
Absolutely. And I know, I'm in corporate America in the medical business industry. So I was in medical sales for many years, and now I am with an organization that I am in a management role, and I do have, I just happen to have 7 RNs that I manage. But I did medical sales for many years, and the only reason why I was looked upon, I believe, as someone of a leader is because I led the rankings. I mean,
Yep.
you can't take that away from me, because the numbers don't lie. If I'm number 1 in sales, you're going to have to recognize me as being a top leader.
Yep.
But what I found was, in one particular organization that I was with, and I've only been with 2 in the last 15 years. So some people can do a process of elimination. One of the organizations that I was with is I put my name in the hat to go up the ladder even further based on what I have already given them. I gave them top rankings. I grew a territory from 300,000 to 2.6 million in 5 years. So I did everything that I was supposed to do, but I was never allowed to move from my position. Instead, I watched man after man after man get
Right.
promoted in positions that I was very well, if not overqualified for. And it's so disheartening. It's so discouraging, because I can't do anything about that. I can't prove that that's, maybe he was the better one for the job. I can't prove anything except for I'm sitting back going, I know what you're doing. I know what
Right.
you're doing, because I am the best one for the job. I've proven that, but yet I never was there. I never could get there.
I know. It's one of the reasons I'm supporting actually this new company that has software that does promotions blindly. So in other words, you put all the people in your company inside this software, computer program, and then the program picks who should be next up for the next promotion based on their sales and based on, so that you take out gender, you take out the good old boys club, you take out, and it's very fascinating. I think it's the wave of the future, because some companies will say, well, we're not biased, we don't discriminate, and they still do. There's still a lot of subtle discriminatory behavior that goes on, even based on your name. The best story ever was when I was speaking at a university in Pennsylvania, and I met with some of the students afterwards. One of the women came up to me and she said, I got to tell you something about bias. And I said, what? She said, I applied for an internship in sports for the summer, and when I showed up on the first day, every single person did a double take. And I said, why? And they said, because I was a woman. I said, what do you mean? She said, my name is Michael. And she had put on her resume when she applied, Michael, whatever her last name was, and they assumed it was a boy. And so she got the
Right.
sports internship, and she shows up on the first day, and they were shell-shocked. And it's an amazing story, and it totally supports all of the scientific data that shows the same thing, that when you put a girl's name on top of a resume with better accomplishments than a boy's resume, that 70% of the people still favor the boy. It's,
Wow.
it's, it's sad, and it means we still have more work to do, but I love sharing that story because we should all name our girls Michael.
Yeah, or Robbie, or
Yeah.
you hear I actually know a Robbie. Her name's Roberta, and she
Yep.
hates Roberta. She goes by Robbie. So if she put her name on the top of her resume, people would think. I wonder if that's ever happened to other women, but they've not connected, that they maybe went for a job interview and didn't get the job because who they thought was showing up was a Robbie.
I don't know, but it was pretty hard to change Gretchen. I'm trying to think, like, what would I
Yeah,
be, George, or,
George. Yeah,
but Georgie can often pass as I don't know. Listen, it's food for thought, and
right.
we should revolutionize ourselves as a society so we don't have to worry about that stuff. But I
Yeah.
still love telling that story because while we're still working on it, she ended up, getting the internship, and I love that story.
That is a good story. Well, I know that women they're bound by the non-disclosure agreements, and they're voiceless a lot of times. And so they really need someone to speak for them. And you are actually doing just that. So I want to thank you, Gretchen. I want to thank you on behalf of all the women out there that are listening, that are right now going, man, I need to tell my story. I need to get out of this NDA and be able to reach out to you. So where can someone listening get involved in your organization and possibly tell their story?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So it's really simple. If you go to liftourvoices.org, you can join our mission. You can sign up to be part of our army, as I like to call it. And we're growing by leaps and bounds. We have thousands and thousands of women who've joined our forces. You also can click on a tab to share your story with us. In many cases, we're there to try to help. We're trying to find people lawyers, or find them people in their area that they can consult with. And then, of course, the main thing is we're working so hard for education on this issue, but also to change the laws. Because, for example, New Jersey passed the best NDA law in the country right now, and basically means that companies cannot force you to sign an NDA anymore. And that's what we're trying to get done in every state, and then on the federal level as well. So,
Wow.
any support, once you join our army and you're part of our mission, one of my favorite quotes in the world is, "One woman can make a difference, but together we rock the world." And that's what we're seeing happening on this issue, is that, I may have jumped off the cliff by myself on July 6, 2016, but together, look what's happening. All these women have since come forward, and we're rocking the world, and there is power in numbers. And
Yeah.
I am not going to stop until I'm done achieving this for all women in our society. So
Wow.
join our mission, and we're going to
Yeah.
do this.
It's really amazing how you think you're starting off on a path a certain way, and how God can
Yeah.
just pivot the path that you're on, and actually take something that you thought was going to destroy you and turn it around to do something so good. And I think he does that for those that he knows that are going to be faithful to his direction. And I that's exactly what you're doing. I think he picked you because he knows your strength. You're a strong woman. You have many women that look up to you, including myself. And he picked you for a reason. And there is no doubt in my mind that you are going to continue to be on this successful road. And we don't want you jumping off the cliff by yourself. We want to jump off and swim with you, Gretchen.
Okay. Well, there are so many women, who did that after my story, and buoyed my spirits by telling me their own stories. And
Good.
so we're all in this together. And thank you so much for your kind words. And I totally agree with you on God's mission for us. And it's funny, people who have known me my whole life, they said, I think this is really what your calling has been, because my life has worked in so many mysterious ways.
Right.
And I was supposed to be a violinist, and then I was supposed to be a lawyer, and then I ended up being in TV, and then, gosh, I ended up doing this. But people who've known me my whole life know that I've always been passionate about equality for women and what's right for women. And
Right.
and so it kind of comes full circle. And
Yeah, it does.
here we are. Listen, if I can pass some of this legislation, if I can literally change the workplace for American women, that will be my greatest professional accomplishment. Forget TV. I mean, it will be my greatest professional accomplishment to have done that on behalf of all women.
Yeah. And, I mean, it literally brings tears to my eyes because, I was in the pageant system for so long. And I'm just sitting here thinking how many women think, man, if I was just Miss America, what I could do in the world. And you took Miss America as a stepping stone. I mean, that was a pebble compared to what you have accomplished and what you're going to continue to accomplish for others. So I thank you for that. Where can we find you on social media, Gretchen?
Yeah, it's really easy. My website is Gretchen Carlson. That's very simple, GretchenCarlson.com. And Gretchen Carlson on Twitter, Gretchen Carlson on Instagram, Gretchen Carlson on Facebook, Gretchen Carlson on LinkedIn. Yep, it's pretty simple. And yeah, so
just Google Gretchen Carlson, you'll find her somewhere. Whatever your social media drug of choice is, you can find her there. Thank you, Gretchen, for your strength. It is truly contagious and uplifting, and I appreciate you and everything that you're doing to help other women. I thank you for joining me today on Real Girl Talk.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been so fun to chat with you and get to know you better as well, and we'll do this together.
Yes, we will. Ladies, if you need a voice, let us hear from you. This is a way that you can just actually tell your story and feel good that you have someone that is trying to speak for you. This is a great way for you to step out of your comfort zone. I talk every week. I end my show with telling you to step out of your comfort zone. This is the time to do that. I want to close with a quote though, which is not normally what I do and how I choose to close it, but I found this quote and I thought it was so fitting to do this while Gretchen was on, because it fits into our show. It is to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable, and to make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. So until next week, I want you to stay safe, grow in health, make yourself happy, and above all, keep your faith in God. God bless you, my friends. Have a wonderful week.